Wrapped up another session of peace talks mediated by the US in Abu Dhabi. But it's not clear what the results are. UAE officials said the negotiations were held in a, quote, constructive and positive atmosphere. The 2 days of meetings put officials from Kyiv, Moscow and Washington in the same room. That's a first for the process, aiming to end nearly 4 years of Russia's full-scale war against Ukraine. Ukraine's president, Volodymyr Zelenskyy, said he expected more dialogue with Russia as early as next week, while Russian media is reporting that the Kremlin is open to further talks. And we can now speak to Yevheniia Kravchuk. She's a Ukrainian lawmaker and member of the ruling Servant of the People Party. She joins us today from Warsaw. Yevheniia, the talks in Abu Dhabi have now concluded. From your perspective, did anything substantial emerge?
Well, obviously, if something substantial would be reached, there would be some news, especially from the American side. But usually in such situations, people say that the sides decided to meet again. And obviously, there will be a meeting in a week or so to continue the talks. But it does look like that Kremlin, as always, is using the situation, the weather conditions and the further attacks on civilians to put pressure to seize the conditions they think are desirable for themselves. And obviously, Ukraine is seen as a red line, leaving the territories that are not occupied by Russia by force. So, giving these territories to them.
Now, it is the first time, though, that Ukrainian and Russian officials are talking to each other directly. What were our expectations going into these talks?
Well, before this time, we had the direct talks on the prisoners exchange, the prisoners of war that were brought to Ukraine or Russia. So it's not the first time, but obviously on the political level, it's something that is happening. But again, Ukrainian side and President Zelenskyy himself never said that we don't want to talk or we don't want to sit and discuss. I mean, he was actually saying that he's ready to meet Putin. But again, it has to be a serious understanding that Russia is ready for real negotiations, for the common sense, and it looks like that it's not yet the case.
Now, how do you assess Ukraine's negotiating position right now compared to previous rounds of talks?
Well, obviously, during winter time, these attacks are very harmful, but it doesn't mean that Ukrainians are, marching around the country saying that, oh, yes, let's capitulate. It's totally not the case. And at the same time, Ukraine had developed its own long-range drones that are reaching the oil refineries in Russia. That is actually damaging a lot Russian economy. Russia is not successful in any major land grabs. Remember the situation with Kupiansk in Kharkiv region when even Putin was inviting international media to come and report that it was taken by Russia. But at the end of the day, President Zelenskyy went to that city and proved that that was just mere talks from Russian side that this city was occupied.
Now, U.S. officials are saying a next round of talk will begin in Abu Dhabi on February 1st. Do you have higher hopes for that round?
I guess we need to put more pressure on Russia to see something substantial coming out. And Ukraine had done its part of the job negotiating with, the partners on the security guarantees, on the reconstruction package. But obviously, it takes more to put pressure on Russian side, and that would be really helpful if we would want to see real results coming out of it. And we do foresee that Russia will be continuing targeting civilian energy infrastructure, especially Kyiv, because it's sacred target. It's capital of Ukraine, but also it's the place where 4 million people live. And it's right now minus 12 degrees Celsius. And some of the neighborhoods in Kyiv do not have heat, do not have running water, and do not have electricity. In my neighborhood, I just came by train to Warsaw just this night on my way to the Council of Europe. In my neighborhood, we at least have 3 or 4 hours per day of electricity. So it's relatively comfortable. And we say that we're going to write in our CVs that, we survived winter of 2026 in Kyiv. That's a good plus for credibility of the person and some survival skills.
Yevheniia Kravchuk there, Ukrainian lawmaker, member of the ruling Servant of the People Party. Thank you very much, Yevheniia.
Thank you.
Let's go over live to DW correspondent Rebecca Ritters, who's in Kyiv for us. I believe we have a bit of a bad line, but you should be able to hear me. Rebecca, tell me about these talks concluding in Abu Dhabi and if we have some sort of outcome.
Well, Ben, there was no major, outcomes to be expected, and that is exactly what has happened. Though President Zelenskyy has called the talks constructive, and as you mentioned there in your lead-in, there are plans, hopefully, potentially, for talks to continue next week. President Zelenskyy saying that being based on, both negotiating sides going back to their respective leaders, talking about what was discussed, and then trying to figure out a way to go forward. But the mere fact that these two sides have been sitting in the same room is quite a breakthrough in itself. It's got to be said that looking at those photos and seeing the Russians on one side and the Ukrainians on the other inside the same room is pretty staggering. So nothing really to be able to announce now. They did say that perhaps things would be announced by each side when they went back and discussed it with their leaders. But I don't think we'll be expecting any major breakthroughs at this stage. But, really quite a big step forward for peace talks that have been trying to take off for some time. This is definitely the biggest step forward.
Certainly rare pictures there. On another topic, Russia attacked Ukraine overnight, leaving a lot of people in the cold and dark. What's the situation now?
I have to say that is certainly the biggest story here. You're not hearing many people talking so much about the peace talks, even when you look at the papers here. Really, the biggest issue facing Ukraine and Ukrainians at the moment are these attacks. And of course, the major attacks, another one that happened last night, one of the biggest in recent weeks on the capital, is causing huge power outages. Thousands of Ukrainians are without power, water, heat at a time when temperatures are sub-zero. This is a really dire situation, potentially the worst we've seen in the nearly 4 years of war. And of course, that issue overshadows what many people find the talks that are happening, and they wonder how legitimate or how genuine the Russian side really is when they continue to carry out these attacks. One of the topics being spoken about at those meetings was a potential sort of agreed ceasefire, if you will, on attacks of the energy industry. But of course, with those attacks happening overnight, Ukrainians left very sceptical that Russians are really genuine and genuinely coming to look for peace.
Rebecca Ritters in Kyiv for us. Thank you.